tuning in?
I have not heard from her one way or the other.
Well, they had a 2 o'clock in the morning Zoom call for the election, so
Yeah,
I would say she's had a long night.
All right, I am recording, so you're good to go whenever you're ready.
Should we start?
Sure.
All right, this is a call to order. It should now be, and it is exactly 6:30. We will move on to approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
We'll start. I just do have an addition to the agenda. Will be under 7C, and it'll be the MOD annual meeting delegate appointments.
Okay, 7C, MOD appointment.
Yeah, delegate appointment.
And I have an item I'd like added, which I was going to say was 7C, but Tina beat me to it.
How about D, Larry?
It's going to be 7D, yes. It's the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council funding.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just writing it in.
And Pam is here. Hi, Pam.
Hello.
Hi, Pam.
Just a reminder that this is when, if you want to pull anything off the consent, you would do it here as well.
I would like to pull the meeting minutes off. I have a couple of edits that I'd like to have in the meeting minutes.
Okay, we'll do that right after the consent then.
Okay. So, let's see. As far as the agenda with the 2 additions, can we approve that? I mean, do we agree with that?
And the
Pam
polling.
just came in, so.
Yep, so we would need a motion in a second to items and pull the one from consent.
Okay, I'll move approve the agenda, pulling the minutes out of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Roll call vote.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tina.
Pam,
Aye.
Cliff,
Oh, hi, Pam.
Larry,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
and Marge.
Aye. Motion carries. On to the, what should we do next? Meeting minutes and add Larry's corrections, or go to the consent agenda?
We can do the consent agenda first, and then we'll do the
All
meeting.
right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
And this is
Move.
minus item 3A. Yep.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Diane?
Yes.
Okay, Tina, roll call.
Pam,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
and Marge.
Aye. So let's do the, Larry, do you want to do the meeting minutes next?
Yep, that'd be good. I just have a couple of things that I noticed going through here that I think need a little bit of editing or clarification. The first one is on item 8C, is that the word prioritization for me, we had a discussion of this tool that BAR has developed to help us understand our projects. It doesn't really lead to our prioritization. That's a different process. But what it does do is it is a project evaluation or a project scored ranking. Project scored ranking is probably a better way to put it. Because what it does is it forms the basis for us to be able to discuss things and get all the stuff in one place. But the board is the one that ends up with the prioritization, not this table. So I would like the word prioritization changed to scored ranking.
I think that since this is the meeting minutes from last month,
Yep.
and that's what that memo is called, was project prioritization. I will make a note of that for future use of it.
Okay.
We bring that forward to you, but I don't know if I should necessarily make that change in the minutes.
Okay, I'm okay with that rationale. I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure, at least going forward, that we're clear that that isn't exactly our prioritization yet until we go through a process of discussion and evaluation. Whoops, lost you guys. Hold on a second. I touched something. There we go. Okay, you're back. In item 8D, there's a part missing as far as I'm concerned, and that is that what I would say, the manager proposed that the RWMWD increase its support for Minnesota Stormwater Research Council by $10,000 to help offset the reduction in state funds and keep these important projects on track. The reason why I would like that added is because it just sort of comes out of the blue that you're in the meeting minutes that you're increasing the budget without that background rationale that Cliff requested it. So there's like a first sentence that was missing.
Or we can add that in. Yep.
I'm okay with that.
Supplemental to the board packet. So that was described in that packet, but we'll add that into that.
Yeah. No, I realize that, but it also tells where it came from.
Yep.
And on the item 8E, the first part of it seems to be a little garbled, but specifically where it says a manager referenced the language related to that it should be the term of appointment for members, and the word automatically ought to be in quotes. It's in quotes later. But when I read it, I thought it sounded really funny because I'd forgotten the word that we were taking out.
Gotcha.
So it
Yep.
means something different unless there are quotes around it.
Sure. That makes sense.
Okay, that's it.
Good. Thanks.
Any comments from any of the other board members about Larry's additions?
No, you're fine.
Okay,
Then we can take a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Second,
second, I mean, is there a second?
I seconded.
Okay,
Cliff?
good.
Okay, Tina, roll call.
Pam,
Aye.
Cliff. Be frozen for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Cliff
I'll
is
say
frozen, I
yes.
hope.
Aye.
Yeah. We'll go to Larry
Aye.
and
Aye.
Marge.
Aye.
And then you're frozen, so I don't know if you can hear us, but we can. Oh,
There he is. He's
yes.
back.
Aye.
You were frozen for a while.
Okay.
Did you say aye for that?
My Wi-Fi has been goofy tonight.
Oh, did you say aye for the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, motion carries. We're down to now, I believe, visitor comments. Do we have any visitors, Tina?
We do have a visitor here, but he may be for a permit. Brendan Barth, are you?
Yeah, he was here for the permit already approved, so.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah.
Brendan, did you have any questions or comments? Otherwise, your permit was approved during the consent agenda.
Nope, thank you very much. This is all unfamiliar to me, so I was just kind of sticking around, but yeah, thanks for the approval.
Yeah.
Okay, you can go now.
All right,
Well, you can
Unless
stay.
you want to stay.
that's all right. Y'all have a good night.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Permit program, applications 20-39.
Yeah, so this project was not included on the consent agenda due to a variance request for temporary wetland buffer impacts. Pretty standard. They're placing silt fence within the buffer so that they can do demo of the building. It's already located kind of close to the wetland or the pond. So yeah, and they're providing underground filtration. So essentially it'll be a demo of an existing apartment building and a rebuild of a new one. So.
And
Let me know if you
Rule
have
E,
questions.
I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the wetland rule.
No, I saw
so-
what it was, but when I thought Rule E, what is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve.
I
I'll
move we
approval of the
approve.
permit with special provisions and the variance request.
Second.
What was that, Cliff? I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, so Cliff made the motion as written in the, with the variance.
Okay, and Larry made a motion to approve, is that correct?
Cliff
Cliff
made the
did.
motion, yep.
I
And
second.
Larry second.
All right, any discussion? Tina, let's do a roll call vote then.
Okay, Pam,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
and Marge.
Aye. That brings us to the enforcement report. Didn't look like there was anything special in there.
No.
So, okay, so we can move on to stewardship grant program, no applications, budget status update, nothing new there again, right? Okay, moving on to 7. 2021 CIP maintenance and repair project approval of plans and authorization.
Yeah, I'll pass it over to Brad and he can share his screen if he'd like to do that.
All right. Let me,
Okay, Brad. Hi, Brad.
Hi, Marge. Let me share my screen here and let's see. You have the table of contents for the project included in the board packet, and then the draft plans that go along with the table of contents. That table is for the specification of the contract document bidding package, and it highlights. Let's see if I can get this up. Here we go. 12 different sites that are included in this year's maintenance and repairs project. I think unless you'd like me to go through each of the sites, I can kind of summarize based on which ones are kind of new to our maintenance and the ones that the cities are asking us to do and we get reimbursed for. Does that sound okay? Or should I go through each and every site?
Oh, that's good.
Good.
All right. What I have up on the screen right now is just a summary of, probable costs for each of the sites that are listed. Sites 1 through 6 are very typical. We've seen these. Some of these are annual maintenance areas and clean outs of sediment near outlet structures or near weir structures that help slow the flow down and actually cause sediment to settle out upstream of it rather than having it be passed downstream. And you can see the costs. So the costs that we came up with are based on previous projects that were done and escalated for any inflation that may occur. But those are kind of the summary. The PFS site, the 5th Street Basin, Tanner's Wetland Weirs, Jarvis Mill Pond Filter, Lower Afton Road Drainage Way, and the ABI project. Again, if you'd like any explanation on any of those individually, I can go through that, but those should be at least somewhat familiar names of capital improvement projects we've had, in our program for a number of years. Site 7 is the Bailey Nursery site, and if you look through the set of plans, this is a project we did as a part of the original Fish Creek project. It's a detention area on Bailey Nursery property, and there's a a lower structure that passes the low flows, and then a flood flow structure that's up above that, and essentially an embankment or a small earthen dam that impounds the water behind it. And we're not quite sure what happened, and I think Dave is on the line. He can add to it if he'd like to, as far as his inspection of this. But there was some damage to that structure, and the pipe that goes in between the two structures that is just going to be repaired. So we have a system that continues to flow through as it was originally intended. That's new to the list. Dave, did you have anything you'd like to add about that one?
Nope, I've got nothing. It was a surprise on inspection.
I didn't hear that very well, but
Yeah.
okay. I'm going to move on to Site 8, which is in Coleman Basin. This is the wetland area that's south of Beam Avenue and east of Highway 61. We have long wooden weir structures that pass through that wetland, again, to slow the flow. And we have a couple of different treatment systems that we've worked into those permeable weirs over the years. What we see in Site 8 and it's shown on the plans is a pilot test of a new treatment system which should help prevent the plugging of the crushed limestone that we're using to treat flows. It works through a series of pipes going through the weir and actually discharging the water through the pipes into the permeable lime and coming up through that permeable lime. So basically cleaning out the filter, whereas before it drained from the top onto it, this is draining into the rock and pushing it back out. So it is a pilot test. This is something that Keith Pilgrim has been working on. And we use that to treat the flows just upstream of Coleman Lake. The Willow Pond CMAC system, we've got a manhole on the upstream side of the where the system is at, and that manhole is actually leaking, and the monitoring equipment and the equipment that goes inside that manhole is at risk of being damaged. And I think Eric has been out there a couple of times pumping that down, and all this is basically a drain pipe that takes the water from that manhole and routes it around the pond into the downstream manhole just to keep that structure dry. Site 10 is really the big one on this whole project. And if you recall back to our presentation in August with the Owasso area flood improvements feasibility study and the bypass pipeline, when we went through that, we were talking about, once we got to the end of that, looking for some area items in the area that could be considered what we were terming as low-hanging fruit. Basically, what's included here is on the north side of Owasso Basin, Ryan Drive is low, and the pipe is relatively small for the flow that it needs to pass through. And what happened back in about 9 years ago was, the water backed up behind there and actually was forced to the west and got behind the berm that helps to protect the businesses on the west side of Owasso Basin. And what a good chunk of this is raising the road and increasing the culvert size through Ryan Drive to make sure that flow from the north coming in gets into Owasso Basin.
I have a question.
Yep.
Okay. Along with that, it shows raising the berm to get it to a certain level, consistent level. What north of Ryan Drive? Is that berm already there, or why isn't there something up there?
Well, I talked to Greg about that this afternoon, and because these are at about 85 to 90% draft plans, that's exactly what we talked about, because I suggested to him that we actually wrap that to the north a little bit on the north side of Ryan Drive to prevent flows moving west. So good catch, Cliff. Yeah, but that was something Greg and I just talked about this afternoon.
So the road will be up at that elevation, and then if there's something to the north of Ryan Drive, then it would keep it all within that culvert.
Yes, there will be in the final plans.
Okay,
And this cost should be sufficient to include, any bending of a small berm north to keep that flow in the creek and keep it from draining to the west.
okay,
So as Cliff was alluding to, the other piece of this is raising of the berm that has settled along the west side of Owasso Basin. It's something that we in the beginning, right after it was constructed, we were touching up every couple of years, and then it became overgrown and essentially I think it was neglected for probably about the last 10 to 12 years. And there are some low spots in that. So we're not only going to bring it up to that original grade, but go slightly higher than that to help store as much of the water in Owasso Basin that we can without having it overtop to the west. So that will really maximize what Owasso Basin can do. And as you recall, we talked about the downstream system. This drains to the south and then to the southeast through Jarvis Creek. So it drains through Owasso Boulevard and then follows the St. Paul Water Utility property and wraps around to the southeast to go underneath 35E. And it's been many years since that has been cleaned. And so this also includes that full cleaning of slightly over a half mile of that part of the creek, which is very flat. There's only about 6 inches of drop over that half mile area. So it has, it is a challenging area for keeping open, but I think if we clean it this time and then we continue to monitor it each year, that part of the system will work better in passing flows downstream. But it's a big amount of work for sure, and you can see the dollar amount that's tied to it. Yeah, go ahead, Cliff.
Does this include taking out that weir north of Owasso Boulevard?
It does.
Okay.
It does. Yeah. So there's the weir Cliff is mentioning is it's a small sheet pile weir. We put it in. Oh, it's probably been 10 years ago now, and what it was really meant to do was to force flows rather than coming straight from the north and going straight south through the ditch system under Owasso Boulevard. It was to try to push the flows to the east to make the long way around to help utilize the deeper area of the pond for water quality treatment. But through our last round of modeling, even that having that slight obstruction in the ditch to divert flows is hydraulically inefficient. So it is raising flood levels slightly. So we're going to take that out and focus primarily on the flood control pieces of this because a lot of the water quality treatment is being done in other areas. One by the MnDOT system and Unweave the Weave, and two by Jarvis Mill Pond. So, but as I was mentioning, that's a big ticket. It's over $500,000 is what we're estimating for that work alone. But all of it is tied to the things we talked about back in August with the feasibility study work and doing those first round of improvements and maintenance items in and around the Owasso Basin to help that system work better. Are there any questions or maybe even concerns about moving forward with this big of an effort at this time, or is this kind of what you had in mind?
Fine.
I don't have a concern. I just wondered about the funding. Who owns that road, Ryan Drive?
It's a City of Little Canada road.
So do they kick in anything or not?
Well, we haven't talked to them about it yet. I think if the board likes this scope, we'll go ahead and talk to them and see if we can get any sort of commitment. My guess is what they will say is, the road is functioning fine for their purpose now. It's structurally sound. They don't design to the 100-year event in most of their roadways. So I would say, that typically we don't raise things to the 100-year level. And so they may kick in some, but it would be minimal, if anything, is what I'm speculating. But we will talk to them. I think that's a great comment. Anybody else? Okay, the last two sites are pond cleanouts and a little bit of pipe work. Site 11 is a pond cleanout for the city of Little Canada. And so it's along Little Canada Road, close to Round Lake and Little Canada, small pond, just some sediment deltas. They've asked us to do that. And this is one of those items that after the work is done, the construction piece of it gets reimbursed to the district for the work. The second is, I think it's a pond over by your house, Cliff. It's not too far away, over in North St. Paul, but we were asked by the city to not only help with some of the cleaning of that, but there's also some culvert upsizing going through Margaret Avenue that they would like us to do. The city actually did the design of it, and we've incorporated that design into our plans, and that's a full reimbursement item as well.
Is the city asking the district to shape those channels too? Because I know they've talked to Paige, I think you can comment. I think they're talking to us about doing a cost share on the channel stabilization.
Yeah, we'll come in
Right,
there
Dave?
and do some of the channel work from the roads on each side up into the pond.
Can't hear you, Dave.
Yeah, she was working right before the meeting too.
Yeah, Dave,
It's like you're underwater, talking underwater.
I can fill you in. He said that, I mean, it will be shaped as part of the project. I don't know if Paige, if there's something additional you wanted to add to that.
How about now?
It's better.
What?
That's better, Dave.
Paige online?
Yeah, she's here. Paige, did you have anything to add?
I don't think I have anything to add at this time. I might need to connect with Dave a little bit more.
We will be doing the channel clean out up to the road into the pond as well as part of the project.
I talked to the city manager last week because they cut down a whole bunch of trees that were apparently hit by lightning last big storm. But they completely took all the trees off along the channel. And apparently the neighboring houses have been asking the city to do some channel work along there because it's been eroding pretty badly. So they thought they'd get the trees out of there and then work with the district on try to do a native habitat restoration. So you'll probably hear from them if you haven't.
Okay, sounds good.
Brad?
There may be another small item or two that just came through today. This is down by the earthen dam that's part of McKnight Basin. It's along McKnight Road along Battle Creek. There was a recent inspection done by the DNR there, and they identified a couple of items that we may need to address after we look at them. They would be very small ticket items, at least the way I'm seeing them described, unless we uncover something that isn't quite as obvious through the DNR report. But that just came through, so we may be adding that. So this cost may go up a little bit.
The DNR dam inspection? report?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it was the dam inspection report. It was a small erosion area. But everything checked out. The dam report was good. They just said they noticed a few things that could be taken with.
okay.
So I would say, the wild card in all of this, the big dollar amount is number 10, site number 10. We are going to do a soil boring in Ryan Drive just to verify that, a culvert that goes in there, it's going to be a lot bigger than what is currently there, but we want to make sure we add more fill to the area, add a bigger culvert, want to make sure that the soils will support it. But right now we've added some, I think, extra dollars into this amount just to hopefully cover all that would be included in that. But just know that, from a premature standpoint, that's probably has the most variability on that item in and of itself. With that said, our base estimate for the construction elements is $675,000. You add in a 20% contingency and the engineering and design work and the oversight work and administration work through all of that, we get a project cost of $980,000. this year's estimate with the items that are slide 11 and 12 are the reimbursable items. So not many
What
of
do
them.
we have in the budget this year, Tina, or for next year?
Oops. We had $1 million.
Oh,
that.
okay.
But, you know, some of this may qualify for some of that flood damage reduction fund.
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah,
because some
that's a
of
good
that is
point.
improvement rather than true maintenance. So,
Yeah, that's a good point, Brad. We would pull that out, and that would come out of the flood damage reduction.
okay. So what I would say is if the board feels this scope is appropriate and this cost estimate is within the range that you feel is appropriate, go ahead and accept this. What am I trying to say here? You know, the preliminary plans and specifications, and direct staff to go ahead and advertise the project for bid.
Okay,
Also move.
is there a second
Second,
discussion?
I have one question. In the Owasso Basin or the Jarvis Creek and in the Twin Lakes and in the things around Grass Lake, we have a lot of channels that we're monitoring and we're responsible for maintaining. Do we in general, we had a discussion about this at the last meeting, so I understand the process. But in general, if we see something that needs to be done, do we use the contractor that we're working on the CIP with and extend the contract for them?
That's what we've done in the past, Larry. If we've identified something along the way, we tend to get an estimate from the contractor or a quote, depending on how what it looks like, and then we would incorporate that into a change order and expand the scope, and give them a little more time to do it and pay them a little more. Yes. And so, Amy, I think it was either last month or the month before you were asking about the change order process. That is, in essence, what we did in the 2020 project for some items. Yes.
Okay.
I know Dave
Anybody
is
else?
watching and monitoring those flow paths pretty regularly, and if there is something, we can definitely add it at that time.
Okay.
Okay, Tina,
Are you ready for vote?
yes.
Okay, Pam,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
and Marge.
Aye. Motion passed. On to the Keller Channel Weir.
Yes, and I'm gonna pass it back to Brad again for the
Okay.
results of the bid opening.
Yeah. Let's see here. I'll make sure. And let me know when you can see my screen.
Now,
Okay. All right. We did advertise the project that we discussed with you back in August. If you recall, this is the Keller Channel Weir modifications and the Phelan Outlet modifications. These are incorporating the gate systems into these structures to allow them to be flexible and work according to the operating plan to help us build more resiliency into the entire system draining through Lake Phelan. So really trying to better optimize the flows through this area into the Beltline. We received 6 bids. They were clustered up nice for the first 4, right around $1.2 million. And then we had a couple of them, Blackstone and PCI roads, that were a little bit higher, but some pretty good interest in the project. And the low bidder, apparent low bidder, has met all of the bidding requirements. They submitted their bid bond for 5%. We had one addenda, and that was signed. The bid was signed, and the affidavit that we require them to sign as well was included. Their bid was $1,197,089.40. The engineers estimated probable cost was $985,000. And so we did go through the bid thoroughly, checked the math first of all, and it did check out and looked for differences between what we had in our original estimate. I would say two really stuck out. There was probably about a half dozen, but two really stuck out. And not only the low bidder, which is Pember Company, is out of Menominee, Wisconsin, but kind of the average of all of the bids for control of water. Pember was $190,000 greater than the estimate that we put together.
Oh.
And the average was slightly less than that, but still pretty high. So there's quite a gap there. And there was probably about $70,000 more that was included for the electrical work tied to these gates around the two outlet structures in Lake Phalen. So, just with those two, it kind of closed that gap between where we were thinking it would be and where the bids came in at. Contractors see this differently than engineers and vice versa, and they are the ones that are on the hook for having to build it for the costs that they provide. So I don't claim to be a contractor, but how we do these things, we use projects that we believe are similar and try to get information from previous projects on these different line items. But when it comes to essentially control of water, there's no two sites are the same for sure. So, we're trying to do this in the winter time to minimize flows through here to kind of help with that. But it still was a big gap in the dollars. So, are there any questions beyond that, or would you like to see more?
That's a pretty significant variance from the engineer's estimate. Typically, if we see 10% or greater above the engineer's estimate, we start to question the validity of the bid, and this is almost 20%. So I'm wondering whether or not should we rebid it? Should we get them to modify their bid, or how should we approach it?
So I'll let Viethan jump in here if she'd like. One thing I do see though is, if there were just one bidder that was, really low and the rest were up closer, or vice versa, or, then I would say there might be a problem with that one particular bid. But we do have four bidders that are, very close as I would see it. I believe the contract allows, and I'd have to but we select based on the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, which would be Pember companies. And we can, after that, we can negotiate with them or talk about other alternatives to get that price down. I'm not saying, that will work, but, I think we either have to do it that way or throw out all the bid and rebid the entire project. Han, do you have a comment or an opinion here?
Nope, everything you said sounds perfect.
Okay.
So Brad, when you were evaluating the bids, were all of the bids high for the dewatering? Was that a common theme?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And do you feel after looking at warranted to have that higher than your engineer's estimate?
I'm not sure if what we have on the plans, either didn't have enough information for them, or they saw something we didn't. We can award it, and if we can't come to, if we're not confident in what they're telling us, we won't have to sign the agreement. So, we can make the award, but before we sign the agreement and start the construction, we can do this negotiating.
You can have them explain their assumptions, can't you?
Yes,
No
absolutely. And that's what we would do. And then we would try to work with them, to try to use a different approach to get the cost down, really.
I mean, if you hear their explanation and you say, well, there's definitely a different way to do it that would save you money and save
Right.
us money, then you can
Right.
have them pursue that, correct?
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
I'd be amenable to that approach.
So,
Well,
we haven't worked with Pember companies before, and we did request references. We checked on 5 references, and they were all very favorable from a variety of individuals. And Tina has a summary of those notes from our checking of those references, and it sounds like they are very reputable and have done work that is similar to this for municipalities and government agencies. So, Larry, we're going to say.
yeah, kind of the way I look at this, although it's always not a welcome surprise when the bids come in higher than you think. But I think one of the things we have to take into account is it still seemed like the right value for the board to go ahead and invest in it. In other words, if Bar had gone through this and with a little more information had come up with, so it's going to cost $1.25 million, would the board have said, no, we're not going to do this? Or would we have said, yeah, that's okay, and then it would be in line with the bids? So even though it's a surprise, I still think that the rationale ought to be that if this is the value proposition we're looking at to install these 2 weirs, that I like your idea of going ahead and approving the low bid and then negotiating with them to try to get it as low as possible.
Anybody else? I agree with you, Larry and Cliff. Should we make a motion to approve?
I'll
All right.
move
Yep.
to accept the bids and award the Keller Channel and Phelan Outlet Resilience Modification Project to Pember Companies and direct staff to prepare and mail a notice of award, prepare the draft agreements, and review the required submittals. And also, I'd like to add to that to work with Pember to reevaluate the water management portion of the bid to try to lower costs.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Tina?
Any discussion? Nope. Okay, then Pam,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Diane,
I,
and March.
Aye. Motion carries. Now we're down to C, the mod delegate.
Yeah, so I had sent you by email. I'm going to try and share my screen here so I can put it up since it was not in the packet. So we received the, oh, can you see that now?
Yep.
Okay, good. You received in the packet a packet you received today from me regarding the annual meeting notice for MOD, which again is going to be held virtually starting on December 2nd. And as part of that, there's a business meeting that includes the resolutions and some other items that require that the watershed appoint delegates for voting. And those have to be approved by the board. So they do ask for 2 delegates and 1 alternate. So I would ask if there are board members that plan to attend the annual meeting and are interested in being delegates, that you nominate yourself or nominate others in the group.
How about we try, who's planning on attending this virtually
I was
on our board?
planning to attend, but as I told Tina today, I'm scheduled for shoulder surgery a couple days before that, and I don't know what condition I'll be in to be able to hang through an all-day virtual meeting. So
Yeah.
I don't think I should volunteer.
Larry?
I can do it if, because I plan on at least attending part of it, if not the whole thing. So yes, I would be available.
Okay, Diane,
I'm not sure about my schedule yet, but possibly.
Pam,
Yeah, I'm the same. plan to attend some of it. I haven't looked at my schedule yet to see when I'm free, so I'm hesitant to commit, but I would be happy to, if I'm available, to be a delegate if need be.
okay, well, then we've got Larry and Pam and Diane as an alternate. Does that sound about right?
I think that's good.
Yep.
Is that okay, Tina?
Sounds good to me. If you want to make that motion, and then I'll send this off to Mud.
Okay, somebody make the motion.
I move that.
Okay, she moves that. And Larry are the delegates and Diane is the alternate for the mod. annual.
Okay. So there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
All right, Tina, let's go around the room.
Okay, Pam,
Aye.
Cliff,
aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Diane,
I,
and March.
Aye.
All right. So
Yeah.
also,
All right, next.
also, well,
I'm
also,
sorry,
sorry.
what are we doing?
I was just gonna say, also included in that packet is the resolutions that were presented to the resolutions committee through MOD. You'll see some of them were repeats from previous years, and then there's a couple new ones. And you'll see the committee recommendation on the right as far as supporting. These are you'll vote on all of these, the delegates will, even the ones that were opposed in previous years. So if you want to have any discussion on that, you're welcome to, but otherwise it's just for your information.
Are these resolutions for this year?
Yeah, so on the page right here, this table is the resolution committee recommendations for 20.
Okay. I was thinking we were still submitting resolutions, but that's all done.
Yeah, submission is all done. This is the ones that were submitted for this year. Any discussion? If not, then we can move on.
I have one question though. The MOD meeting is in the same week that we have our board meeting. Is there any interference?
I haven't seen the schedule yet. I don't think there'll be any interference with the conference itself. There might be a social event that they're planning, and I'm not sure which night they're going to do that, but there's a number of watersheds that have meetings that night, and so I don't think they'll pick that. And from what I've heard from other administrators, nobody's moving their meeting, so
Okay,
I don't think if there will be.
just wanted to check.
Yeah, yep.
Because last year we moved it, but the virtual meeting is quite different.
Yep. Okay, good.
Oh, that was easy. Larry, you have the Minnesota Stormwater Research Funding.
Yeah, at the last meeting, Cliff brought up the fact that the Minnesota Stormwater Research Organization was running into some financial challenges. And we all agreed that we should increase our contribution by $10,000 to help out. Cliff and I were both at the Metro Mod meeting last week, I guess. And they presented their programs and answered a lot of questions. And it struck me that what they are doing, Cliff already made this point, so it re-struck me, I guess I would say, that what they were doing was extremely important. Cliff spoke up and challenged the other watershed districts to increase their contributions to the Stormwater Council, indicating that we had increased ours. It was met with crickets, basically, but he did make the point. And I'm just wondering, the bottom line is the Stormwater Council is going to have their budget reduced by $150,000, basically, due to cutbacks in the state budget. And although our extra $10,000 is helpful, I was thinking that maybe what we ought to think about, or what I'd like the board to think about, looking at if we can find another $20,000, but make it contingent on the other watershed districts contributing. There are 14 metro watershed districts in the area. I think they probably all have taxation authority or close to it, one way or the other. And if each one of them gave another $10,000 or even $5,000, if we'd say it's not exactly a match, but it's like a match, that maybe we put in an extra $20,000 if they step up, that would pretty much give the council the budget that they need to continue the good work that they're doing. I was really impressed. We didn't have John present this year, but we have before. The guy's impressive to listen to. The stuff that they do is impressive, and his understanding of how to get this implemented into the regulatory system is amazing. And I would hate to see a lot of that go away next year. I'm opening up that for discussion to see if that's something that we'd like to do.
Another idea I had along that same line was to work with maybe Cap Region and Mississippi WMO and maybe a couple other watersheds that have contributed to basically challenge others with a matching grant program to match funds if it's new or increased contributions, that these 3 or 4 watershed districts would match that amount, and then we split up whatever that match is. And it would probably come up to, $20,000 or $30,000 each, but there'd be, $90,000 from others. So that would be another way to approach it. And I think it'd be interesting. It might challenge some cities and other WMOs to kick in some money. It'd be a good way to kind of elicit support without being a hammer at all. It'd be a carrot.
And who would be doing this, Cliff? You and Larry?
Well, I'd be happy, and Tina knows these people too, but I'd be happy to talk to the others and see if we can get a coalition together to push either to contact others to get, just contributions, straight contributions, or to start up this kind of a match program.
Yeah, I like this idea. I mean, I can certainly work with John too on kind of formulating this plan for how to, because he's really good at, like you said, he goes out and he solicits this. And so I can work with him on that. And if you guys are interested in connecting with some of the board members, if on some of these different watersheds, that might be a good way to just garner that support from their board.
I know in the past, I've really pushed this Stormwater Research Council in past years, and going through Metro Mod has been extremely frustrating because it's mostly attended by board members. But in the past, I've been very unimpressed with the strategic nature or strategic knowledge of some of these board members. They just have never been very prone to support research, which really surprises me all the time. But most of the time I've gotten administrators just to propose it to the boards, but then they don't approve it. So I think things have changed over the recent years. And I think if a new approach was made, it might have more success.
Yeah, I think that's great.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah, and we do have that money already in the contingency, so we could pull that rate from the research contingency for that.
Right. Right. So what's the action step with this? Just so I'm clear, because I'm willing to do anything that anybody wants to do.
I think for tonight, we'll take a motion to, dedicate that funds to that purpose. And then I'll work with John, and I can probably work with Mark and Doug from Cap Region and Mississippi WMO as well, and have those discussions with them.
Okay.
And then I can come back to you on the side too and just let you know if support, if they feel like board to board member support is needed. I can have you guys do that work as well.
Okay. All right, that sounds good.
Yep.
Well, do we need a motion or do we just agree that this is where we're going?
I think you can agree. There can,
Well, we've already agreed to contribute more funds, so I think it's just a matter of how it comes about.
Right.
Right.
yep.
So let's see what happens with working with John and the other watersheds, and then Tina can get back and let us know what that looks like.
Because if you start talking to them and you find out that they're still not willing to put any money in,
We'll just do it.
well, this is how many years, it's the same thing. We put in money and a couple of other watersheds put in money and the rest sit on their hands.
Yeah, kind of the way it is. Some cities are out in front and others aren't, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So good luck on this, Cliff and Larry and Tina.
No, I appreciate that support on that because I think that's a good idea.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And that, I think, was the end of number 7.
Yeah.
So now, Tina, it's up to you, the administrator's report.
Yep. So one in A and B were informational.
I had a couple questions on meetings.
Sure.
On the Health Partners webinar, I'm just curious, what are they coming to you for next year proposal? Is it?
Yeah, that webinar was real general, just looking at what changes just specific to Health Partners because that's who our carrier is.
Yeah.
We haven't seen our numbers yet for comparison for making decisions for 2021 yet. That should be coming in the next week or so. But it was a more general. Health Partners is planning to stay fairly stable for next year. So I would anticipate that we would continue with them if that holds to be true.
They aren't proposing big changes to deductibles or anything, are they?
No, no big changes. No, and in fact, they're even just improving. There was a lot of discussion around some of the extras that they're adding to their plans for work from home. And then they talked about some COVID stuff. So they have a kind of an on-demand exercise channel thing that you can access online, their members and different things. So.
Okay. And then I was wondering what I haven't heard much about the MAWA program lately. So I was wondering if you could update us on what the administrators are talking about these days.
Yeah. So some of the items that we've been talking about is a lot of around training and education for watershed staff. There's a real gap in the availability of training for all levels of our staff. There's a lot of comparisons to what the soil and water conservation districts have available to them through even Bowser Academy, although they don't have as many tracks for watershed districts in particular. So there's been a lot of discussions with MASQUA and the Bowser around how we can improve our education and training. That's been a big topic. We're also, did you receive notice about the Clean Water Council appointment process? If you didn't receive that email, let me know and I can send that to you. But that's been a discussion too. The Clean Water Council has an appointment for watershed representation. There's been a lot of discussion over the years about how that position should be filled and who should fill it and how that process works. Basically, a recommendation comes from MOD to the governor as part of the application process. And then the governor is the one who ultimately approves those appointments. But that's been a topic because the administrators feel that for consistency, it would be nice to have a staff member. That's how an administrator or a staff member, again, that's how the Soil and Water Conservation District handles it. It's a manager from one of their districts. The issue that came up is that the watershed representation was a board member who was no longer serving on a board. who had not been reappointed for her position, and she continued to represent the watersheds. And so there was a lot of discussion around that as well. But Emily at MAUD is trying to come up with a better, more transparent process for how that works. And so what they're asking, the MAUD board is asking for any recommendations or applications to come kind of in one group to them, and then they would make a recommendation to the governor's office. So those are kind of been the two biggest things that we've been talking about.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Anything else about the meetings attended? I don't really have a place on the agenda to talk about the Water Resource Conference. Larry, I think you were there. Cliff, did you attend?
Yeah.
I don't know if you had anything you wanted to share from the conference.
I was surprised it went fairly well. I thought being all virtual, I didn't know how well it would work, but generally you're sitting there listening to a presentation and looking at a PowerPoint anyway, so it worked fairly well. I thought the presentations I went to were well done.
Yeah, the ones I went to, and Tina, I was at yours, and it went well, although I'd seen a lot of those before, I think at the bar seminar we had a couple of years ago. The only really funny part, it was in the wetlands one that I was watching. The one area that had the biggest problem was ironically the loon habitat area. And just figure out the loons would be the one to have the problems, but it went real well. I thought it was pretty amazing. The one thing that I found interesting, a lot of the presentations were, a little bit to my surprise, research projects in their very early stages, if you will.
Yeah.
So there was some stuff that hopefully there'll be a follow-up with it sometimes. But I took a lot of notes. I took a lot of screenshots so I could follow up on a lot of that stuff and look at their websites and do that sort of thing. So
good.
I figured out how to take notes in a thing like that. If you take a screenshot and put it into a PowerPoint presentation, you can save all the information that they have. It disappears. And at least I haven't gotten, they're supposed to send us links, I think, to the presentations, and
They're supposed to.
I haven't seen a thing.
I attended part 2 and I enjoyed it too. I learned a few things, and encourage others to, you don't have to be an expert in the field to participate and listen. You can learn stuff. And Larry, I have all sorts of pictures from my phone that I someday go through. I'm like, what did I take a picture of for? But no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but there should be a follow-up from
Yeah.
Water Resources Center to give us links to all those presentations. So if there's one you missed, you can go back and watch it.
Right.
Yeah, they were all recorded, so we should be able to do that. Yeah, I agree. I thought for as big of a conference and as many moving pieces, it went really, really well. And some really good feedback. So
Yeah, I think they said there were 850 attendees, which stunned me.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
news break. My wife just came and showed me that Arizona's been called for Biden.
Oh, he only had 6 to go.
Yep.
Just need Nevada.
That'll do it, yeah.
All right, so that was the meetings attended in the upcoming. The CAC bylaws I just included as an update. There was a few changes that Tracy had suggested. And then I also included the membership list as you had requested. So I don't know if you have any questions or comments about any of that. Otherwise, that's information.
Well, I did have one question. At the last meeting, we approved the new bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
And the red line version is different than what we approved. So shouldn't we, I take it the red version is the final version?
Yes, so I think I don't remember if the motion included, now that you say that, any changes that Tracy had, or if that came after, but you should go ahead and approve these as changed.
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do.
Yep.
One question I had was, I went through it all and I thought, oh, I didn't see a mention of the board approving the membership at our annual meeting. It just says the board shall approve the membership.
Right.
It's a small point, but do we want to specifically say that it happens at the annual meeting or just that the
I
board?
thought, yeah, I thought.
Why
it
do
had-
we, I'm sorry, why do we want to do it at the annual meeting?
It's where we make all our appointments and we approve the board, the bank, and who's our.
I'm just saying if that's why we want to do it, because we're doing all that other type of business, that's fine, but
No.
I think if you wanted to do it at another point in time, it would be fine also.
Right, could be. Yeah, that leaves it open-ended, but I'm fine with it the way it is.
The one thing I would ask on the CAC is, my understanding is when it says it meets every other month. I honestly don't know exactly what they're doing. So I would like to see an item on the agenda every month for Cliff to update us on what, because since he's our representative, just
Yeah,
a verbal update on what they've talked about. And obviously, every other month, there'll be nothing to say, but at least we would be able to connect with what was going on with the CAC.
Sure.
yeah, I'll be better. For a while there, I was having Carrie do the updates in the board packets, and we've fallen off from that. So I will get back to that. I'll have her do a staff write-up, and then Cliff
Okay.
for liaison comments as well.
Okay.
And they meet 6 times, typically around 6 times a year, but it's not necessarily every other month. So they meet more in the summer,
Oh, okay.
fall. So it's might not be every other month, but
Okay.
in our meetings, I will include that.
Okay, great.
So I'll move approval
Sorry,
of
if I
the
could
CAC bylaws as modified.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
You're a little quiet.
Hold on. I've been having trouble with the volume all day. Can you guys hear me?
Just
Barely.
barely.
Try my headset.
Okay, nothing.
Yeah, that's worse.
We could hear you, it just wasn't really loud when you pulled them out without the headphones. We can't hear you with those.
Okay, how about now? I'll just shout.
Okay.
There were just, I found a few more very minor, well, maybe not minor, but typos. I just saw on the first page, and I can resend it to you, Tina, but I just want to make sure that you guys know that I found some more. Under Article 1, right away where it says the Citizens Advisory Committee should be after. And then otherwise, at the end of that paragraph, there should be a period. But that's all.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
So my motion will stand with those additional changes.
Second.
Did you make a motion, Cliff? Did I hear you?
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did.
Okay, and Larry, did you second?
Yes, I did.
Any discussion? Tina?
All right, Pam,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Diane.
Aye.
And March.
Aye. All right, anything else, Tina, you want to talk about?
Yes, so the last item in the administrator's report is the equity inclusion consultant. So we did get another proposal. So I wanted to include that for your information. As I mentioned in the write-up, it verified that at least we're in the ballpark. I think they both were very similar in pricing as far as their estimated, per hour and then total kind of package deal. There is another one that we've talked to. We don't have a proposal from them yet, but make sure that that's also in the same ballpark. But if you're comfortable with me planning to look for budget items before next month to include that in the budget for 2021, I would do that.
Let me ask a question. What's the need we see for proceeding with this?
I think there's a couple of things. We've talked a lot about having our staff, CAC board, volunteer kind of group have a more diverse and reflect more of the community that we're serving. So that's one of our goals for this. The other goal is what the outcome, as is shown in some of the proposal language, is that they would do an audit of our hiring practices and our recruitment practices, and offer suggestions for how we can improve our process that could make that more equitable for recruitment in both volunteers and staffing. The other item is to look at our programs and our project work and to make sure that we are equitably, especially in our cost share program, making sure that we're equitably providing that across our district and having opportunities for different community groups that we collect, revenue from, and we should be serving as well in our community. And that's also, so that's a second thing. A third thing I would say is it's also staff development. So there's a number of items that are personal staff development as part of how all of our staff do their jobs and work in our communities, especially people that are really forward facing in our communities.
So Tina, it seems like they're kind of like Sarah and Noah, only for diversity development.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a big part of it. Sarah Noah is our, she does our staffing and why am I blanking? Our salary structure, and she's pretty narrowly focused as far as what she's done for us in that regard. But yeah, so there's HR, there's HR work, and then there's staff development and project and program evaluation as well.
This is
this type of training requested by any entity? Are we, so we're not obligated to do it, we're choosing to do it?
Yeah, we're not obligated to do it. It is a focus, I would say, of many of our state agencies that we work with, the PCA and DNR. I mean, that's a state mandate that comes from there. From the governor's office down for them to do this work. It's been a topic, something we've talked about at MAWA actually as well, at least in the metro area, as a topic of concern and wanting to develop amongst our metro area watersheds as well.
Yeah, and we've been talking about it for a couple decades actually, in terms of just staff diversity, without having much success in terms of how we actually do it.
Right.
When we recruit and advertise for positions, we review and have interviews based on who applies. And if a diverse population doesn't apply, we really can't hire minorities if they aren't there. So there's other ways to do that, and we just have never explored it. And I think it's an excellent idea to move forward with this and do what we can, at least, to show that we're trying to reflect the nature of the community we serve.
I think there's some real good base work that we can do as a watershed, and then there's work that we can work with other watersheds to collaborate together on that. I think because it is it's not just us that struggles with that, it's across the metro area. Capital Region has already started embarking on this kind of mission, and Mississippi WMO has done some of it too. So I think we would be in a real good place to be working together with them on action items moving forward as well.
Have you heard, Tina, are other local governments doing this work?
There's some cities are doing the work. Many cities have diversity and equity, either staff groups that meet or have even some like committee kind of designations. So I know cities are doing it. And then like I said, the state agencies, the PCA has been really at the forefront of that. And John Linkstein was there. They did a lot of that work under his leadership. Yeah, and then a few of the other watersheds, like I mentioned.
I'm curious, Brad, what is Bar Engineering doing on this?
I was gonna ask that.
Yeah, that's a good question too.
We do have a diversity and inclusion initiative that was started about 2.5 years ago. We have a consultant that we work with as well, and we've got internal teams that are working on different things from an inclusion standpoint. From a diversity standpoint, we too have run into challenges associated with finding a more diverse population to apply for jobs that we have out there. So we're trying to seek out maybe a variety of organizations that we haven't recruited from in the past to try to encourage a more diverse group that applies for jobs at BAR. So it is a pretty significant effort that we've been going through the last couple of years, and it's one of the top things that the management team is working on.
Thanks. You know, we've talked about it in the challenges for quite a few years now, and I'm just going to throw out the idea, maybe we need to move the bar back a little bit. Why don't we have some interns that are like high school interns to interest them in this kind of work? You know, if we're just looking at people in college for internships, since that so often leads to a job in this kind of field, you've got to have that practical experience to get the jobs. Let's get some people at younger ages, and we've got Sage and Randy Edmondson and all of their connections. It wouldn't cost us very much to have paid interns to rotate through our various types of business in the summer. And I think we just might have to move back into our recruiting at an early stage.
Yeah, we've talked about this, and Simba has worked. So we haven't had, you know, like you were saying, we haven't hired high schoolers, but Simba has high school staff through other community groups that have them. Simba, I don't know if you're available to talk about your work with. Where'd she go? There she is.
There she is.
Yes, we've worked with the Conservation Corps Youth Outdoors program. Conservation Corps hires youth crews that work one afternoon and one full day a week during the early and late school season, so spring and fall. And we've worked with those young people for years on generally 1 day a week projects, doing seed collection or weeding, things like that. They are limited into what they can do because, of course, you know, you want to be careful, particularly safety conscious with groups of 15 to 17-year-olds. Those crews right now have been focused, their work has been going strictly on to St. Paul projects for like the last 2 years. They've had enough work to keep those young folks busy. So we have not worked with them other than once or twice in the spring and fall the last couple of years. That program is still going strong, and I highly encourage anybody here to become a sustaining donor to the Conservation Corps for the Youth Outdoors, which I am as well.
Yeah, I think that they're doing some great work, but I'm talking about focusing more on kids that are maybe juniors in high school that are looking to apply to these types of colleges that give the degrees that we hire to, and some of the teachers that we work with would probably have some good recommendations.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Sage has a current, there was an Earth Club at one of the high schools that Sage worked with quite a bit, but that teacher, Jill, has retired, and I'm not sure who is leading that youth group right now.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, though. We'll keep that on the forefront because we've talked about mentorship programs as well, and how that might help kind of foster that. But I think the paid internship is a key part of that. So
I just wanted to pipe in that I totally agree, Diane. That's a great idea. And also, I have a new company, Marpan Pharma, and I discovered through the state we can get free interns, high school students. And if, I think that might also work as something for the watershed district to go into that state program to get and recruit interns that are free, as well as ones we might pay to, you know, meet diversity needs as well as, you know, just helps out.
And thanks, Pam. Diane. Any other ideas or thoughts or questions? Okay, that's all I have then in my administrator's report.
As far as that brings us, by the way, I like the idea of a free intern.
Free is good.
Well, whatever that is, have to talk to Pam about that.
Yeah.
Project and program status reports, again, I suspect you don't want to go through each one individually. So if anybody has any comments about any project in this list or wants to ask Brad, Tina, any of the staff people, let's try it that way. Anybody? No questions about any of these? Okay. Report of managers.
Oh, I did have one question. I'm sorry.
Oh, Larry, there we go. I was so disappointed.
Well, I'm sorry. I couldn't remember what it was. In the Hillcrest Golf Course, you said that Bar hosted a virtual workshop for the city of St. Paul to discuss various project options. That presentation available? Can we see it?
I don't know if it was recorded, but I can add, I'll ask Nathan at Bar if, I don't know, Brad, if you know off the top of your head, but
I don't know off the top of my head. No.
or maybe Paige, do you know?
Yeah, I don't think it was recorded, but we have a nice detailed memo that I think the city, I don't know if Nathan or the city put it together, but we could send that out.
I'd like to see it just to see what's going on with that.
Sure.
No, I'd like to see that too. That would be fine.
I'll include that in the next packet.
Larry?
I
That
have,
page, or do you want me to get that through Nathan?
I think I saved, was this September 30th or
Yeah, I think we have
October
it. Brad.
1st?
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I think I saved that presentation.
Report of managers. Let's start with Larry.
I just had a couple of questions. Number one, you put the new technology review of the Lane Enterprises. They're an interesting company, I have to say. Is that something we're looking at using here? It seemed to be really an interesting technology.
I don't think we have necessarily an application for this at the moment. You know, we do these about every other month. We've kind of taken a break this year and not done quite as few of these, but looking for, you know, some interesting technologies out there that we can write up you know, a brief you know, summary of what the data shows on those. But I don't think we have anybody at Bar that has implemented this one in particular, but it does look interesting and have some applications. So.
One thing that would be kind of helpful with those technical reports, even though I get a paper copy and that's what I look at, I can still go online. If you could put in a link to the website where we could find,
Sure.
I found the video on YouTube.
Okay.
So I was able to watch it, but it helped me understand exactly how the thing works.
Right, right. Oh, that's a good idea. We'll do that.
Good idea.
I think we also, oh, go ahead, Tina.
I was just gonna say, you know, this is a good application too, where Paige can share this with our city or cost share applicants if they're looking for ways of increasing their treatment too. So we do use these in
Yeah.
And Nicole for the permit applicants as well.
Nicole for permits.
Right.
Yep.
Do we, that's an interesting question because we've the time that I've been associated have introduced a lot of really neat technologies that we don't necessarily use, but could be used by others. Do we have like a book or something we give people that say, here are some things you ought to consider, or how does that work?
But do we still put these on the website separate? She can hop in there.
Used to be a link to all of them on the website.
Yeah, we have not been posting them on the website aside from in the board packets. Yeah, we had a list of them and posted them as just short reports. We could certainly do that again if that would be helpful.
I think that'd be a good idea to have like a resource center. As long as we're doing the work and alerting,
Mhm.
may as well make it available to people that are trying to get things done.
Yeah, yep.
Well, this one, I think this one's particularly interesting because it's basically like a infiltration rain garden, but it's underground.
Mhm.
You know, it's a very practical idea. It's not really new technology, but it's a new application.
Right.
I think it's should be pretty easy for someone to see the potential benefit.
Anything else, Larry?
Oh, that's all I had.
Diane?
No,
Cliff?
The only thing I'd like to mention is on the Bill's report on the carp management and the Owasso chain. Shows the really good results in both Owasso and Wabasso and Bennett carp biomass. He gave a report to the last CAC meeting on that, as well as the new types of fish barriers that they're constructing, which are working a lot better. I think they're doing an excellent job there.
Great. That would be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Pam?
No, thank you, Marge. And I would move that we adjourn.
All right, is there a second?
Does Diane have anything to say?
I second it.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you? Good. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
I know
Pam?
we don't have to do that, but
Yeah, I don't think we have to, so we're good.
no.
Good.
Gotcha. All right, thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.